It was pretty much this time last year when my featured guest today and I connected for a conversation about what the PGA merchandise show would look like when every show on the face of the earth was being canceled a year ago. Because 30,000-ish plus golf industry professionals traditionally have gathered in Orlando for the PGA merchandise show. And last year, the attempt was made to turn it virtual, and nobody wanted to do it that way. And we would much prefer to be gathering in person, shaking hands, having lunch and dinner together, and doing the sort of fellowship that makes golf so special and makes the industry so special. And so joining me is Marc Simon from the PGA of America, and this is his baby. I don't know, Marc, if you get to sleep at all this time of year, because this is planning time and still trying to figure out the vagaries of where we are with this ridiculous pandemic. And knowing, by the way, that in the state of Florida, they treat it differently, for instance, than in the state of New York or California. And you've got industry professionals from all of these different places. So how's life these days?
Well, first of all, sleep is overrated. So we're doing good. A lot of coffee. I think we're keeping the coffee industry going. But, you hit the nail on the head. Last year, we were, planning for the virtual event. We had great participation. We had really good feedback on the educational component of the event and some of the seminars, but you're right. People miss seeing, touching, and feeling product and being together in person and connecting with their peers. So we're excited again to be bringing the industry back together this year in Orlando, and we're knee deep in planning. And luckily we work for a global company here at PGA Golf Exhibitions. Reed Exhibitions puts on a number of events in other industries, and we've had the learnings and insights from really 7 or 8 really large industry shows that have come back already, have had really successful in-person events. Those in the golf industry sometimes can't imagine that we can come together for a large event like this, but the events are happening and they're really successful, and the audiences that are there are really excited and really enthusiastic, and there's pent-up demand, and the camaraderie and the excitement that you feel is really palpable. So we're again excited to bring everybody together. The show, we think, can help capitalize on the tremendous growth in the industry and catapult the industry out of the pandemic, and to help our audience thrive and adapt in kind of this new world.
I've had a number of conversations with golf professionals and resort owners and those who are in that management level of the golf world, coming off of, at least in my part of the nation, coming off of their second consecutive record year. They've never seen demand like it is. And it's interesting in the context of the PGA show, because I have it marked on my calendar every year. It's a rite of passage. You have to be there. But, and I'm sure you're hearing this as well, a lot of the properties and the PGA professionals are saying, yeah, well, we'd like to be there, but we just had another record year and we weren't there last year. So what's the sales pitch is the wrong word. What's the strongest, what's the strongest argument you would make to them, those who say, I don't need to be there?
PGA professionals and buyers, especially those in the Northeast and Midwest. I just went out with my son to the local par 3 course here in Connecticut on, 4 o'clock to try to sneak in, and it was packed. We've never had that before. It's unprecedented. And if you talk to PGA professionals, they're working so hard, and they haven't gotten a break. So number one, it's a great opportunity for those in the colder climates to get away and to connect with their peers. They haven't had that opportunity to really connect and to share what's working, what's not, to commiserate on the challenges they've been facing, and to learn. And that's what we hear over and over again is, I miss connecting, not just with my peer from the same section that I'm in, but from somebody across the country. And there's so much learning, there's so much education. The show is really the best place to adapt, to equip yourself with the tools and the skills that you need to not only, I would say, take a break and to relax, but learn how to capitalize on this great momentum. And the industry, I think, is at an unprecedented place where we've been able to, through the pandemic, to attract so many new players, to attract more diverse players. And can we retain those players and keep them and continue that growth, as we come out of the pandemic? So I think it's that kind of shared experience, that networking, the learning from peers, that I think is invaluable, and you can't get that virtually. And if you miss out on that, you're missing out on a lot of opportunity.
You mentioned the virtual idea, and it's an attempt being made across multiple industries. If you look back now on last year, and you do that self-analysis, we all do in our businesses, we try to find the things that we did really well and things we could have done better. What letter grade would you put on the final product of the digital PGA show?
That's a great question. I think there were things that worked really well, like we talked about on the education and conference side. However, being able to replicate kind of seeing, feeling, touching product, facilitating meetings virtually that would normally take place in person, I think the effort would be an A or an A plus. I think the results maybe would be, a B minus. I think things went really well from an education perspective, but did not go well from kind of that connection and product demonstration and just review of apparel work. But, it's very tough to do that virtually. So,
Yeah.
I think those types of things would be a lower grade and the education higher, and maybe we'd morph into a B minus when you look at the effort that was put into it.
Yeah, and it's no fun to grade oneself when the grade isn't an A plus, but we all have those moments where we go, hey, we gave it the effort. And I definitely know you gave it the effort, because last year at this time, I think you were shaking while we were talking. I mean, it was kind of.
And the other thing, we're big on learning and improving and doing better. And we really we did extensive surveys after the event. We really talked to a lot of people. And again, it reiterated the fact that people miss being together in person. They miss seeing, touching, and feeling product. And again, we're going to have, probably close to 600 vendors at the event this year, and a lot of new products, a lot of innovation. And if you want to, equip yourself as a PGA pro or buyer to stay ahead of the industry and to see what's kind of coming and what's new, there's no better place than the show to do that over a very short period of time.
How does that number compare to robust prime pre-COVID years of exhibitors?
Yeah, I think, logically, everybody would expect that the show would not be, it's going to be a very different show than it was in 2020. We may have between 800 and 850 exhibitors or vendors normally. And most of the shows that have come back, I referenced some of the other shows in other industries, they're seeing, anywhere between 60 to 70% of the audience that they would normally get, and same thing on the exhibitor side. So again, a very different show. We're trying to focus, for example, I think the education component is really, really important. So we've partnered again with the NGCOA, with the AGM. The PGA of America has a very robust education program, but we've reformatted and reorganized that education so that there's much less overlap with the show floor, so that people could take education, but focus their time on the show floor. We think it's really, really important for people to be able to have the time to connect with the vendors who are out there. If they can participate in education, great. They can do it at times that don't necessarily conflict with show floor hours. We're also, one of the learnings from our virtual event was that we could record sessions and then make them available on demand. So, those that are at the show and don't have time to participate in education, they'll be able to access it after the event. And for those who can't make it for whatever reason this year, they can also have access to the on-demand education.
When I think of the experience in the convention center, I think of the sounds. There's a constant din of voices, right? There's if you ever needed to record a soundtrack for your movie of convention center sounds, you would just hit record and walk down the corridors, because that is that constant buzz. And then there is, in the background, you can always hear a ball being struck somewhere, it may be in one of the exhibits for in-home simulators. It may be down at the end where you can test equipment, but you can always hear a ball being struck. And it's, over a couple of decades now of coming to the show, those are the sounds that are in my mind. When putting together the layout for this year, one would think if you have a third less exhibitors, you've got a little bit more space to get creative. So what's the on the floor experience, the sounds, what's it going to be like in January?
Well, a couple of things. Number one, we're investing in the look and feel of the show. So you'll kind of see a new kind of enhanced look and feel kind of when you walk in. First of all, the PGA of America is launching actually a new PGA hub, actually right when you walk into the show floor, where they can showcase PGA Frisco, their new HQ, which is going to be opening, the Make Off Your Thing campaign, PGA Career Services, and a number of other PGA initiatives and programs. So that'll be kind of a great focal point and showcase for the PGA. We are, luckily the way the show is laid out, as it's a very long show from one end to the other. So we're able to just compact it. We're still going to have the features and, the things that people love and that they remember from the show. So the equipment test center, the new product zone, the inventor spotlight, the fitness area. So a lot of those, the fashion show we're bringing back again. We're actually moving that to a more central location and having that on opening night. So although we worked with a lot of vendors on kind of the right way to approach the show, a right-sized approach to the show, people will walk in and it'll still be a very large event with all of the features that they're used to, just in a little bit more compact total footprint.
I have these conversations with different folks in the industry. I know you do as well. And I've had a couple of people say to me, it might not ever get back to where it was, like much of life. My church is a pretty good sized church of a couple thousand people. And we're still not back to where we were in-person attendance wise. There still is that segment of folks who feel more comfortable watching that service online. What are you thinking? What are you seeing? What are you hearing about just pure attendance, let alone the displays, the exhibits, and the different nuances that you've tweaked inside? What are you hearing about people who are coming, and are they nervous depending on what state they're coming from?
Yeah, we're very cognizant and sympathetic and understand why somebody may not feel that they would want to come this year. At the same time, we put out extensive surveys asking what our buyers and our PGA professionals plans are. One example, a recent survey we put out to PGA professionals that normally attend the show. So they go, every 2 out of 3 years or 3 out of 4 years. 70% said they were still planning to attend. 19% were in that, I'm not sure, I'm probably going to decide 6 to 8 weeks before the show, or even 4 weeks before the show. And about 11% were of the, no, I'm not attending this year. So as we've seen at other industry events, that kind of, if those numbers kind of play out, even if they're tweaked a little bit, most of those events are getting, 60, 65, 70% of the attendance that they would normally get, some 50%, but somewhere in that 50 to 70% range. And again, I think, it's probably going to take until the 23 show to get back to a more normal level of participation. But I think with where the trends are in the golf industry and the new play that we have, the diverse play, there's an amazing opportunity to, again, grow the industry and to help it sustain that growth moving forward. There's supply chain issues now, there's, logistical challenges, and it's a great opportunity for exhibitors to be able to talk through those challenges with buyers.
Yeah.
But again, we see a more normal return to, I would say, pre-COVID levels and, going into the 23 show and beyond.
Boy, we sure hope so. Man, we sure hope so. You mentioned the survey. I remember I got the survey, and the comment that I left was, I plan to attend unless I have to wear a mask indoors for 2 days, which leads me to my question on protocols. What's it going to be like? Florida, as I mentioned a few moments ago, Florida is different than many other states. So how do you decide?
Yeah, that's a really good question as well. Luckily, we've had these other events to learn from. We, of course, are following CDC guidance from local officials, local and state officials, venue officials, and we're looking at again, kind of what's going on in the world. We typically won't put out specifics about an event until 2 months or less before the event, because things change so quickly, as you've experienced, last year or this year. For example, we've had shows where face coverings have been required. We've had shows where face coverings have been recommended for those that are vaccinated and required for those that are unvaccinated. We've had vaccinated events where you would only be able to get in if you're fully vaccinated. In this particular industry, we most likely are not going to go with a fully vaccinated event. And we're still kind of, talking through and looking at the face covering requirements based on numbers, CDC guidance, guidance from local officials. We would tend to have, at any region that we're in, health and safety protocols that are elevated over what any local or state protocols are. So more to come on that. We want people to feel safe and comfortable. We also want them to be able to engage in a way that we normally would. But again, we're going to follow the guidance and recommendations from the experts and plan accordingly. And I think you'll see more specifics on that probably either just before Thanksgiving or just after. But again, the focus is that we can be nimble, we can adapt, and we can change, if things either get worse or, as they're doing now, start to get a lot better. So more to come on that.
I was at a Detroit Red Wings game at Little Caesars Arena a couple nights ago. And before going, I looked online for whatever the procedures were, the protocols were, and it said recommended masks. And you go inside and there's 19,000 people. And there might have been 4 masks that I saw as I looked around. And yet, the next or 2 days later, the Detroit Pistons were at home in the same building. And in that case, if you're sitting on the first couple rows on the floor, then it's required. So is vaccination. So same building, different leagues, different rules. And it just makes, if I had any hair left to pull out, I'd kind of pull it out. It's kind of difficult. You and I both, right? So it's hard to thread that needle. It's hard to figure out where the comfort level is. And it probably is connected to the home location of the attendee or the exhibitor. Because they have been living in a different mindset perhaps than their neighbors to the south. We know Florida's pretty wide open and that kind of thing. So in the end, I'm glad that I don't have the headaches that you have to deal with, because I can't imagine the number of emails and phone calls coming into the office like, I will come, but I am not doing this, or I'm only coming if they do this. And you're like, people, come on.
Well, you can imagine there's opinions on, one end of the spectrum,
Yeah.
on the other, and, people feel comfortable with different things. We're trying to, again, while keeping in mind people's comfort level, do what's best to create a safe and comfortable environment for all that attend. And again, we'll have more details on that in the near future.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the big brands, the big box boys and girls. Who all's coming and who's not coming that we would normally see? Are we going to walk into giant exhibits from Callaway, TaylorMade, Titleist, FootJoy, Ping, whatever? Or are some of them saying, we're gonna sit another one out?
Yeah, so we're putting out a release sometime in the next probably week or so with some more details on the brands that are going to be there and the brands that aren't. I will say that not every brand is going to be there. We are absolutely working with every brand on a more, I would say, right-sized approach and way to participate based on what's going on with their company. We've had some companies that, believe it or not, are taking more space based on a product launch or some significant event that they have going on. But the majority of companies, definitely we're working with them on less space, spending less this year. I think that logically makes sense. And again, we hope to have, close to 600 exhibitors, many of the leading brands, but again, we won't have all of those brands. And again, referencing the other shows that Reed Exhibitions has put on, a lot of those events didn't have every single brand in their industry, but they had very successful events. And the exhibitors that did participate, their exhibitor satisfaction, their net promoter scores were higher because the attendees that exhibited were really motivated to be there. Again, there was pent up demand. They were excited to be back. If you're going to go to an event this year, you're absolutely going to be focused on what your objectives are. So again, we're really excited about the opportunity. I think you'll be impressed with how the show floor looks. And I think we'll have really good representation from the industry. And anybody that's not there or any large brand, they'll be back in 23.
One last question for you, and I haven't even mentioned this yet, but the tradition also is that on Tuesday we gather outdoors at Orange County National for demo day on that 360-degree practice area. That's so cool. Is demo day as normal with it being outdoors? Is there a return to normalcy there?
Yeah, well, this was even pre-pandemic, but we were going through a name change on demo day to rename the event Demo and Fitting Day. Fitting is just such an important component. We've actually partnered with PGA Magazine and PGA of America, and we have a whole team now devoted to club fitting, where we're going to have experts come in and kind of share the latest best practices. I would say probably nothing this year is the same as it was in 2020, but we'll still have a really robust, we're going to use the whole range at Orange County National, and we're going to have great opportunities for product testing, education, fitting, and I think you'll see some new additions as well that kind of keep that excitement and buzz factor going. That's just a great way for people to get together outdoors to test product, but also to learn. And we're really excited. I think the club fitting area will be a really big hit this year.
Well, I mentioned the sounds that are associated with the exhibit floor indoors. The sounds that are associated with demo day is usually some music cranking, depending on where you are around that circle. And the sounds of thousands of golf balls being launched because everybody wants to get their hands on the new stuff. And it was a time when the big brands would unveil for the first time, what was going to be hot out there. So hopefully that will still be a part of it. But more than anything is I was saying to my friend who went to that hockey game with me, at some point during the, I think, third period, the fans in a tied, pretty exciting, hard fought game started trying to get the wave going. This thing's the wave 40 years ago. And I said to him, do you think people missed being together? And he's like, absolutely. And they were just spontaneously erupting with joy. We've seen it at college football games all across the country, and the benefits of gathering, the benefits of being there in person, being able to look Mark in the eye, shake his hand and say, it's good to see you again. And know that, that we're in person. We're not on a Zoom call like you and I are now. There's a big upside to this that I hope doesn't get overlooked by the industry as they make decisions on attending.
Yeah, this is even a small example of that. I mean, we had a 20-year celebration for somebody at work, and it was a happy hour event at a restaurant, and they were having a virtual option for people to join as well. And it was a tough day, and I'm like, am I going to make it to this? And I'm like, you know what? I am going to make it to this. And, when I was there, I'm like, I'm so thankful that I went. I was able to, give a big hug to my coworker, and just the stories and the camaraderie and just that experience as you equate to sporting events. People miss that. And I was so thankful that I went. And we have so many emails from the other shows that have come back from both buyers and vendors saying, thank you so much for putting on the event, from the same people who were like, you shouldn't put on this event, or, I'm not going to go. And then we talked, we worked with them, and they ended up participating, just thanking us for bringing the industry back together. And I think you hit the nail on the head. I think that's the opportunity. I think people will be really pleased with that shared experience, that camaraderie, that best practice sharing, the learning, and just that feeling of being back together. So we can't wait. We're excited to get back. And again, we got a lot of work to do over the next 2.5 months, but couldn't be more excited to be bringing the industry back together in Orlando at the end of January.
Well, I will let you get back to work. Thank you for the preview, the update, and let's all hope for a well-attended, safe show that is the last time we have to even talk about protocols, and hopefully into 23 we can just all come together in a big group hug.
Well, Bill, we appreciate it, and thanks so much for your support, and thanks for all that you do for the industry. Look forward to seeing you there.